podcast.
I know, yeah. Let's see here. Welcome to the Most Strength podcast. This is going to be our first one. We've never done a podcast before. But my name is Patrick, and you can introduce yourself.
I'm Tyler.
And we met through the rec center, but we're here. He's got a lot of life experience, a lot of fitness industry experience. And he's one of the smartest dudes I know, so it's going to be, we could probably have this podcast be hours, 5-6 hours if we wanted to. But
life experience, also known as old.
He's not old. That's not true. He's young at heart. Age is just a number, baby. Anyways, so I guess we'll just jump into it. We're trying to have different guests on the podcast. I'm just one half of Most Strength. Justin, unfortunately, is a little bit sick right now, and so we thought it'd be best to not have him here, but he'll be on all the future podcasts. So, anyways, want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, what brought you to Bellingham?
So the military brought me to Bellingham.
Okay.
I was in the Navy for 6-ish years, but really, like, what got me into like doing the military was fitness in general, and just fitness goals. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really want to join the military because I was like, military, but I was like, I want to do something hard. Yeah. And so I decided to challenge myself and train for a spec ops program. I didn't even know which one I wanted to do. Yeah. My initial thought was like SEALs, and then after kind of like talking to recruiters, and then I met a former SEAL who was there doing like some of the training sessions. Mm-hmm. He was like, hey dude, you're pretty smart. You're older than most of the other like young kids that come through here. Why don't you go through EOD? He was like, nice. Yeah. He's like, it's a pretty sweet program. And he told me this like little anecdotal story. He was like, if you're a SEAL, you're like marches to the jungle or whatever, and you step on a nail, you're gonna march for however many miles you need to march with that nail in your boot. Right. And it's gonna suck. And I was like, that sounds terrible. He goes, but if you're an EOD guy, you're going to go, ow, my foot hurts, and you're going to pull that nail out, and one's going to stop and wait for you, and you're probably going to get some food. I was like, that sounds really cool. Awesome. He was like, because those guys need you. I was like, there you go. Like that. Yeah. So I decided to go for EOD. And can you
explain to people what EOD is, too?
Yeah, so EOD is the Navy's Explosive Ordnance Detail Program, or disposal. So basically just disposing bombs and stuff like that. But the Navy's a pretty like elite version of that. They do it underwater, they do it on land, all over the place. They're pretty awesome dudes. Nice. I mean, and unfortunately, like in training, I got hurt. I broke my hand twice with some pretty dumb stories there. Yeah. But I don't want to. That's another whole tangent. Okay. But injuries like that, and injuries in general, have always fascinated me. It's what got me into liking fitness in the first place. Was starting, I guess, to backtrack before Navy stuff. Yeah. I started working out in 2008, 2007-ish. Okay. And since then, I haven't missed a week of training. I've been consistent for 14-ish, 15-ish years now.
Even through injury and stuff like that?
Through military, through injury, through COVID, through any literal trial and tribulation in my life. I've never missed. I've taken time off, but like that time never exceeds a week. Yeah. And I always find a way to do some kind of like active recovery if it's going to be more than a week. Yeah. That way I can keep my streak going, but it's also just like that's more of like a prideful thing. Even if I get injured, that's probably where the dumb side of me comes in, and I'm like I should rest than the dumb side. So like, you shouldn't rest. Yeah, come on. Right. I shouldn't. Yeah. Which probably persists some of my injuries more than they should. Yeah. Even if I've needed surgery for stuff, I won't do it because I just don't want to not be able to train. And it's that's probably a clinical thing as well. Like it's there's something to say about that. Probably gonna go nuts if I don't. So I don't know how to face that. Yeah. But I mean, so been doing that for consistently since 2007, 2008, and I started with really no kind of background. Like I wasn't an athlete in school. Like I did karate when I was younger for about I don't know how long. It was a while. It was years. Yeah. Like it was more than 6 years, I think. Almost got to a black belt, but it's you basically like the kind of karate I went to was like Americanized karate, and it was all about pay for it. So you had to like pay for the belts and stuff like that. But it was awesome, and I learned a ton from it. So like I learned discipline, no idea what it was at the time because I was just there. I was like, I just want to play Pokemon cards because I was just a young kid, and that's what was popular then. So but I got a ton of discipline from that, and I like got a lot of flexibility from it. And the flexibility is that, and the discipline are the two main things I like. They got me started and didn't even know they were like gyms, but they were just kind of like always in my bag. Yeah. And I kept that stuff because I grew up like in the era like in the late '90s and early 2000s where kids played outside barefoot, so I ran around a lot and I was always moving, climbed trees, but I wasn't like an athlete by means. But that got me basically with just this like clean slate. So I started off like when I graduated high school is basically whenever I started like working out. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I really like this stuff, and I liked it, so I was like, didn't know where to get information. This was before like the whole internet age. I mean, not really, but I mean it was before you get good information on the internet. But, and I knew that, so I was like, well, we had like this bookstore called Books A Million in my hometown. So I would go there. It was like on the edge of the mall. I'd pop in there. They had like an attached Starbucks, and right next to the Starbucks was like the fitness aisle, and it was 2 4-foot sections of books. That's all it was. Yeah. And I didn't read cover to cover every book, but like I picked up at least 75% of the books. Wow. The yoga ones, I was like, I don't want that. Yeah. But I picked up all those books, looked through them, and like took small little like things. Yeah. And basically got this like very generalized opinion about like what I thought fitness was. And then it was everything. It was like I remember one was like a Navy SEALs nutrition book. I was like, oh cool. So I learned like a ton of nutrition from that without knowing anything to knowing, quite a bit. Yeah. And it wasn't anything super in depth, but it taught me enough to kind of, know how to eat, not crappy. Right. And then, but be consistency was important to me at the time. Okay. Or just from reading, I kind of formulated that consistency was important. So I was like, all right, cool. I don't know how to eat amazing, but I know how to eat consistent and then eat things that are sustainable for me. Yeah. And that got me like on a good path. And immediately, like the first thing I ever did was P90X. Like that's what got me started. Wow. Something that like most people were like, what? Yeah, I wouldn't expect that answer. Yeah. I did P90X, and it was the first time I like ever worked out, and I was working out in my buddy, so I call him my brother. But his family's Vietnamese and like super open people, and I would always like just be at their house all the time, and I would crawl in through their window, like and they told me the window was open in the back, and I would come like crawl into the window after work, and I would go do P90 in their living room, like when no one was home. Like no way. And they just had like a big open area, kind of like this, and it was like hardwood floor, and they had P90 on a big TV, and I would just turn on and I would do it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. I like this. Yeah. And I did it twice, and I was like, this is super cool. I enjoy this. Like I was pretty good at working out because I went from like maybe being like 170 pounds at the time or 160 pounds to like basically ending that entire program at like maybe 10 pounds lighter, but I gained like 15 or like 18 pounds of muscle. Wow. Because I had never worked out, so my body was like, well, what are you doing? Boom, training adaptations. Bam. And no idea what that meant at the time, but like, I was like, oh, cool, I'm like pretty strong now. And I'm like, so I thought. And then I was, a buddy of mine like also like wanted to start working out, so him and I both got our first gym memberships at a gym in town, and he went like strongman route and like kind of like CrossFit first, then strongman. Then I went like I started off with like bodybuilding, and the guy at the gym was like he was the son of the guy's karate studio I went to. Oh, cool. But and he went to the gym, and he's like, hey, have you ever thought about bodybuilding? He was like, no. He's like, got pretty good physique. I mean. He's like, give it a shot. So I was like, all right, cool. And he was a disciplined guy. I mean, go figure. He was the son of the guy who ran the karate studio, which they were very like, just like just everything they did was very like procedural, and it just kind of like made sense. So I was like, okay, this is pretty simple to like pick up, and I learned some cool stuff through doing that for about 2 or so years, and it was fun. But I soon realized. After those first few years, I was like, this is not really what I like. What kind of stuff would you consider, like, what was your program looking like?
I should say.
It was the very like typical bodybuilding routine stuff.
Just the bro splits?
Yeah, back in the day, it was like you would look at like Flex magazine or Muscle and Fitness, and you could follow one of those, or like bodybuilding.com, like
4x10s on everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was like the very typical like 10 to 12 rep range.
Yeah.
You got to do 3 sets of blah blah blah. Like I don't think I've done any of those things since then. Like I don't believe in like I am like I don't really believe in programming. I believe in programming for other people, but me. But like that's. But that's because I'm crazy. So like I don't like having like a structure when I go to the gym. I like to be unstructured, and unstructured builds well for me.
How often were you adhering to any type of program? Was that anything?
That was the last time I followed a program, and that was well over a decade ago.
Okay.
That's the last time.
Yeah. And then where did you progress from bodybuilding?
So from bodybuilding, that's when I started getting into like, I believe, it's crazy that now I've been doing this so long that I have to actually think about what the order of operations was. But I worked at Best Buy shortly after that, and when I was working at Best Buy, I was still kind of into like bodybuilding stuff, but then I had a buddy who was going into the Navy, and then we started like throwing around ideas about doing the spec ops stuff. And I was like looking into like training for it, and that's what it. So I started doing like CrossFit endurance before like it was.
Before it was CrossFit.
Yeah, I mean it was still CrossFit, but I didn't like do their workouts. I just kind of like looked at them and was like, oh, this. I kind of like grabbed some ideas. It'd be like do this thing for distance, and I kind of threw in like functional fitness stuff that I thought was cool, like flipping tires or doing just like a metric ton of pull-ups.
Right, but you kind of follow the structure like AMRAPs, EMOMs.
Not even. Like I would just go until I was sleepy.
Nice.
And that's still how I go. I'm like when I'm at the gym, I'm going until I'm just like I'm tired.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this anymore. Like that's literally how I still go. But it's like it looks chaotic, but it makes very much sense to how I do it, and I understand my body very well. Yeah. And I know when like I'm like my creatine phosphate stores are getting kind of low. Like, where's your blood prick? I'm like I just know. It's been 2 minutes and 34 seconds, so I'm getting kind of short. Yeah. I'm burning through them quick.
They're gone.
But so with that kind of stuff, like it like got me like in this shape of I went from like bodybuilding to like like being very like robotic with movements and like isolated with stuff to swimming like miles a day, and then being functional doing like all kind of, I did a lot of like ring work for a while doing that, so it was like gymnastics based things mixed with like some sprinting, some like a little bit of running. I mean I've never really ran, but like
I was about to ask.
The only time I've run was then. And I ran one time, it was like 4 miles. This is the longest I've ever run. Like, it was 4 miles, and I got plantar fasciitis because I bought a new pair of Vibrams, and that's probably the only reason I ran. And then the day I got them, I ran 4 miles, and I was like, ow, my feet hurt. And
wow. Imagine that.
Yeah. Before I knew anything. So,
so what were you, when you were training for the Navy, what kind of fitness standards did they have for...
So they have a thing in Spec Ops today. It was actually like really cool. So I guess I did kind of they program. Okay. But it didn't like give me anything to follow. I just knew what I had to meet. Okay. So you had to do a thing called a PST. For getting into Spec Ops programming. You basically had to like try to get your contract. So if you had good PST times, they'd be like, all right, cool, we'll give you a contract. So that consisted of 500 meter swim, 1.5 mile run. It was max push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups in, I think it was 2 minutes for each one of those things. Okay. It's been a while since I've done one of those, but and I just basically would train all of those categories of things and mix them in, like mix in like tire flips with like some of those things whenever I was training. Swimming was the thing I used to build it the most, like because for some reason I'm 5'8", but I'm short, so I'm not like natively a good or innately a good swimmer. Yeah. But I have long arms, and I knew that, and I have long legs, squished torso, so I knew I had good lever arms, and I could move objects well, and I understood that, so I was a good swimmer, and I ended up like swimming insanely fast. Like I could do a combat side stroke, which is a slow, relaxed stroke. I could swim 500 meters in about 8 minutes or less. Wow. And typically that's like what the freestyle guys were doing. So they're spending a ton of energy, and I'm just there like relaxing, but I was strong enough to like move just fluently, and I practiced it for like a solid year. I was obsessed with this swimming stroke, and
okay.
but that built a lot of like unique like muscle structure and function because I was still moving really well then, like getting away from bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like eating really well.
How did your mass affect your swimming?
I mean, then I wasn't like huge. Like I think I don't think I was like over 200 pounds then.
Yeah.
I was probably around like mid 180s.
Okay.
But yeah, I was getting like pretty dense then. Like, but my mass worked to my advantage, and I knew that because I would basically like I got strong enough to basically like stroke really hard, and then I would, because like in a combat side stroke you kind of go like this.
Okay.
You kind of dip.
Yeah.
So I would stroke, and I would glide, and I would get to the bottom of. I would basically like apex, like where I knew like I would just keep sinking if I didn't have any more like forward momentum.
Right.
Then I would kick, stroke, and then get back up at the top. But I used my mass to basically lengthen that entire pattern of line. So I would do 3 or 4 strokes for an entire length of a pool, whereas normal is like maybe 6 strokes.
Yeah.
So I used my mass to kind of like aid me there, which was like that's a weird thing about being in tune with your body is like like I'm have like these like math calculations in my head all the time that make no sense.
Yeah.
But but I'm like I get it. But I got there. Like so I used that to my advantage, and it made me strong, made me quick, and it made me unique because I still sucked at running.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting an NAOD contract with my times because my run time was for my mile and a half. It was like 11, like low 11 or like high 11 minutes. 12 on average, which is garbage for that program. Most of those guys were like running 9 minutes.
Right.
And I was just like, I'm dying. They called me South Beach because when I would run, like my chest would bounce.
Yeah, right.
I was like, come on, South Beach. I was like, I hate this. But they didn't really give me too much crap because like I was like, I would smoke everybody by minutes. Like most of those guys would swim like 11 minutes.
Yeah.
So they're like, that's kind of weird.
Just kind of flipped.
Yeah. They're like that's strangely unique, but we like it. So I ended up getting a contract with that. Went into the Navy doing that, and it was fun. And it's such like a weird transition from going to bodybuilding to doing this like heavily endurance-based thing, but also you have to be functional because you have to like carry stuff.
Right.
You have to be strong in like all planes of motion, which I wish I had the training I have now and understanding I have now because I wouldn't have got injured.
Yeah.
I mean, I might have, who knows? But preventable injuries would have been a hell of a lot lower.
Okay.
Like now I'm way more preventable than I used to be.
Yeah.
And then so from Navy stuff like that, when I got injured, I went into like the normal Navy or like just like the fleet Navy they call it.
Yeah.
And I ended up being an aviation electrician, so I worked on F-18s as an electrician for about 4 or 5 years. And
nice.
Super awesome job, and I'm glad I chose to stay in because I had the option to get out.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm already here, so why not? And I can maybe use it to get out of the South because I grew up in Georgia and I hated it down there. So, whenever I was in school in the Navy, I'm trying to remember what happened. It was like you basically like whenever you're done with your schooling, they basically give you options of places to go.
Okay.
And I originally chose Jacksonville, Florida, because I was like, well, maybe it'd be nice to like kind of be close to home, but then not, Jacksonville's in Florida. Yeah. So I chose that, and then a buddy of mine was like, he was super bummed, and I could tell because they had no more Jacksonville slots open.
Yeah.
And he had just got married to his wife. They bought a house in Jacksonville because he was kind of banking on the fact that like that's like where he was from.
Yeah.
So I gave him my orders, and the chief that was there was like, hey dude, that was a super nice thing for you to do. Like no one does that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I was like I wasn't really attached to him.
Yeah.
He's like, still, where do you want to go? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was like, Washington?
Yeah.
He's like, I'll make it happen. He's like, Whidbey Island.
Wow.
And like a day later, he told me Whidbey Island. Like all I knew was Whidbey or Bremerton was like the stations up here, but I didn't know that was only like aviation went to Whidbey.
Right.
So I had no idea. I'd never been to Washington. Well, been to Washington through traveling once, and I knew I liked it, so I was like, it'd be cool to go back up there.
Yeah.
Ended up getting the orders, and I was in Whidbey for quite a while. And then I stayed in Whidbey till I got out. And then being in Whidbey for a while, I would come to Bellingham. I was like, I love this place.
Yeah.
A lot of diversity. People were nice. They weren't that fake Southern hospitality kind of bull crap. It was like people were all individuals. They could do whatever they wanted. They weren't trying to shove religion down your throat or whatever it was. Like, you could just be a human and exist.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
You know,
yeah.
And I was like, I like that.
Yeah.
I was like, that's like where I belong. So I stayed. Then when I got out, went to Western for school. And I'm still at Western now, 5 years in, and I've now almost
program, baby.
Now I've almost been a student as long as I was in the military, and I'm like losing my identity of who I am.
Right.
I'm like, who am I? Like, it's like I've done a lot of stuff now. I'm like in my almost mid 30s, getting there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm a student. I'm a veteran.
Yeah.
Am I a weightlifter? Like. And
well, I think in our mind we always have to categorize.
Totally, yeah.
Right.
And you kind of have to do that too to have a goal. Like you have to.
Right.
You have to place yourself somewhere to know where you want to go.
Yeah.
But also you don't have to. Like you can just be.
That's the one thing I'm realizing now that I'm out of school and I'm trying to get my doctorate in physical therapy. It's just like when you're younger, everything looks like everything is so smooth. You know, you find somebody that you love or whatever family or whatever life looks like to you. You know, you kind of have this idea in your mind. As you grow up, you realize that that's not necessarily how things work out.
Yeah, it doesn't have to go that way.
It doesn't.
You're not going to be happy if it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I learned that from a smart lady I worked for whenever I was like still in high school. And that's an extremely far tangent that I can go hours down to, but I won't do that. But needless to say, I learned a lot whenever I was really young by traveling before I ever left Georgia. Yeah. And that's why I am the way I am.
For sure.
Yeah. And through growing up with like a Vietnamese like family that I spent a lot of time with.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like back to like my like fitness.
Yeah.
Like
progression.
Archetypes. Yeah. So it went from the bodybuilding stuff to like this like spec ops training, which entailed functional fitness plus endurance stuff, and then it went to some like powerlifting, or I just went to like just lifting. It was kind of like I was just kind of bodybuilding again, but I was like getting interested in being strong, so I was kind of like starting to do some powerlifting, and then I started like I found out what Olympic lifting was. I was like, oh, I really like this, and it was hard. And at that time, like that was probably like 7 years in. I was like, I can move really well. I was like, I know how to move like extremely well in all like main movements in weightlifting. So I was like, what's the hardest thing I can do? And I looked at like snatching and like power cleaning and stuff like that, and I can't really do cleans just because the injury I had from whenever I was in AOD school kind of left me with this range of motion, and I can't really front rack at all. No matter what I've tried to do. Surgery is what I need basically.
To get that range of motion.
Yeah. To get my elbows up high too, for sure. And have good thoracic positioning. But I'm okay with. I don't need to have surgery to they're clean. The move I was interested in was snatching. Snatching was like I tried it. I was like, this is extremely difficult. And then I started watching videos of. I like stumbled upon Dmitry Klokov, and I was like, this dude is an animal. I was like, I like this guy, and I watched him do this move called a deep snatch front raise, and I was like, what is this? And he had a PVC pipe in the bottom of the squat, taking it and just going like this. And I was like, that's awesome. And I was like, that's super cool. And I was like, and that's primarily like, it's the bottom of the snatch. You have to have power to get weight from here to here. And then I saw him do it with, it was like 155. I was like, I'm going to do that. Wow. So basically I went from PVC pipe, never snatching. I never did a snatch. I never tried to do a full snatch until I got to at least 135 on that move.
Really?
And then after like a few months of doing that, I was like at the time learning a lot about like mobility, and I was like mobilizing a lot and getting like more mobile because I was already like super flexible and like hypermobile where I had the ability to be. So then I became way too hypermobile from like teaching myself mobility. But I had, I was in really good positions. I might have been a little bit like unstable for sure. But I didn't really know, I was creating instability at the time. But I was still bettering myself by learning stuff. So, I was happy. But I was making myself a lot more injury prone by doing that. Which I'll get into that stuff later. But so I eventually like achieved that. I grabbed like 135 one day and pulled it from the ground while in the bottom of a squat, like a deep squat. So my butt was on my heels, and I, with my pinkies on the actual collars, I grabbed 135, pulled it up without even coming off the ground, and then I stood up and I was like, nice. I was like, now I'm ready to do a snatch. And my first snatch I ever did was like, it was an ugly, but I did it. It was like a 185 snatch, and it was super ugly, but it was a full snatch. Like, popped up, caught it, and went up. I was like, nice. And I did it at this gym. It was like a bunch of like CrossFitters, and they were like, what the heck, dude? And they'd always see me in there doing that one move, and like I had bands all the time. They called me like Rubber Band Man, like. So I was like always had bands doing stuff, and I've been obsessed with bands for a long time because I love eccentric training.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like them being like, this guy's a weirdo, to them being like obsessed with me. Like, they're like, what the hell, dude?
That one move paid off.
Yeah. Well, and it's because like I understood. I was like, you have to be able to do. You don't have to, but like doing that move. Put me in the hardest positions that I had to be in, like in the snatch. Like you had to have stability, 100%. You had to have strength, you had to have power to do any of those things, and you had to have mobility. So I was like, if I have that, I bet I could get somewhere pretty solid.
Right.
And then I went and I actually started training snatches like all by myself, like no videos or anything like that, just because I had a strong disdain for the gym I was in. Just all these guys were just always filming themselves doing bicep curls and all the stuff I hate. So I was like, I'm never gonna do that.
Yeah.
So I coached myself with no videos or anything for about 8-ish months, and like I snatched 4 days a week. I was obsessed with it. Like I would just non-stop work on it, and then
just different variations or full snatches.
Oh, different variations. I was doing like drop snatches, like snatch balance, like snatch from blocks, like hang snatch, power snatch, anything with the word snatch in it. I did
cool.
And I got to where I was just doing like my regular load would just be, I didn't even know like I didn't even test my 1 rep max. I just kept going higher and higher and higher. Didn't do any math or any of that stuff. Didn't even know what the hell that was, but but I knew, but I loved Greek mythology, and I knew that if I worked hard and I like basically kept working to get stronger, I would. Yeah. And that was like the principle of all my morals come from Greek myths and Norse myths and Roman myths. So like that's. And I love that stuff. Yeah. And I know that if you work hard, you'll get there. So it's
what's your favorite myth?
There's a lot, but Milo and the Bull is one of them for sure. It's a simple one.
You want to explain that to people?
Milo and the Bull is basically, Milo was a kid. He was given a calf, and he had to carry the calf up the side of a mountain every day to get water. And then as he got older and the calf got older, it got bigger. He got bigger and stronger because he had to carry it up the hill every day. So hence.
Progressive
a huge dude. Yeah. And that's progressive overload. Yeah. They had no idea what that even meant. Yeah. They didn't even speak English, so that would be even more nonsense. But they would have a word for it, and it wasn't that. So but it was probably just hard work. That's really what progressive overload is, with a little bit of sprinkled science on top. Yeah. Boom. And look awesome.
Yeah. That's actually where our new design, I'll show you in a minute, but we have an ox skull, and that's why we have the ox skulls, because
I like that.
So where were we?
I was going
the snatch. So did you end up ever having anybody coach you, or is it just all self-taught?
No, I basically just wanted to do I don't really ever have I'm not competitive by any means. Like I have zero competitivity. I mean, I don't need competition to validate myself. Yeah. And that's just kind of how I am. I wish I liked to compete more. Yeah. But maybe there's some deep-rooted fear there of failing. So that could also be an excuse I'm making for myself. Yeah. But I don't know. But all I know is that I'll set a goal. And my goal is to basically hit numbers that Olympic, US Olympic guys were doing to be on the team. I was cool, I can snatch enough to be on the Olympic team. And at the time I weighed
just have that under your belt.
Yeah.
Not even wanting to get on the stage.
Yep. Yeah. I just wanted to know I could do it. Yeah. But at the time I think I was weighing maybe around 205-ish, and this is so when I got out of the EOD stuff, I pretty much finally hit 200 pounds, and my goal was to be there, and I stayed. I was 200 pounds from probably 2012 to this year, to 2021. Yeah. I've been anywhere from 200 to 225, maybe 230 at my heaviest. Wow. But it was always super lean, and I've stayed there for almost a whole decade. Yeah. But then the low end of that 200 was when I was doing a lot of Oli stuff, and then it was like I thought I was doing 285 for my snatch, and I had some buddies throw on, I think it was 15 pounds on both sides, and I had no idea because I went to the bathroom, and I came back, and they threw on weight, and I didn't even know it. I think it was 10s, because it was 305, I believe, that I ended up hitting. Yeah, it was 10s. And I came back, and I like chalked my hands, and I just, boom, and I hit it, and I stood up, and I felt pretty good. They were like, dude, you just snatched 305 pounds. I was like, really? They're like, yeah, we put more weight on it. We went to the bathroom. I was like, you didn't film it? Like, come on. But this is like, still, this is probably like 2014 actually, because it was right before I went on deployment in the Navy.
Wow.
I like wish I had a video of that, because like my reaction was like priceless, because I had no idea, and like that idea has fascinated me since that day. Yeah. Like, and I'm glad I had some sports psychology classes at Western, because like it helped kind of explain some of that stuff. Yeah. And really, like, not knowing sometimes is the best thing. Like, if I had known there's weight on the bar, not even close. Yeah. Because I had totally attempted 305. I attempted 315. I could like high clean 350. I could pull it, like I could pull it super high, like to my clavicle easily. Yeah. But the second I was going to do it for a named move, the snatch, and for a goal I wanted, not going to happen. Yeah. So not being in my head, it was the easiest thing I've ever done.
Yeah. That's something that Justin and I have been. It's like a theory that I had, and I guess I didn't take too many sports psychology. Yeah. So we can talk about it in more detail. But one thing that I've noticed is, like, at least for me in my training, I set like these almost mental blocks. Yeah. And so, like, I could not get past 185 on my snatch for the longest time. And then about a month ago, something clicked, right? And I was like, hey, it's the same weight. It's the same weight. You know, like, I'm going to go up to the barbell with the same intentions every time, right? And I had another mental block yesterday in my training, but like, it was simply because there's 2 more pounds on the bar. I was trying to hit, that was the most frustrating
Everyone has a crutch, dude. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Whether it's in your closet or it's on your arm, like, you still have a crutch. Like, exactly. Are you using it or not? Yeah. Like, mine was metal plates. If you put a 0.5 pound metal plate that was like as thin as a piece of paper on my barbell, and it weighed maybe, like, if the whole bar weighed 100 pounds, I wouldn't be able to snatch it. I'd be like, it sounds loud. Yeah. Sounds like it's heavy. I don't want it. Like, I'm pretty sure metal plates are heavier than. Oh, dude, 100%. 100%, dude. Yeah, but no, it's just funny. And so, like, the other day when Justin and I tried to train on our heavy days together, and I just told Justin, like, hey man, it's the same shit. It's the same weight. And he was going for a PR attempt, and after he's like, I've been thinking about that now for a long time. Yeah. I just forgot about that yesterday, I guess. But it's just like, I was in my head for the longest time, like, hey, you can't do this because this. Well, you're calling it a PR attempt. Yeah, like, exactly. Don't call anything. Just call it like, hey, I'm just training today. Yeah, we're just training. No focus. Yeah. I mean, you do have a focus, but saying it out loud is different. Like, when you hear yourself say it, it becomes real. And if you say, I'm trying to PR, I mean, you'll probably get it eventually, but I bet you get it faster if you didn't put a name to it. Yeah. I mean, at least that's my experience for me. When I try to do stuff and I'm like sitting there being like, all right, this is super heavy. I mean, and you see me in the gym, like, I just put random stuff on the bar. I'm like, I have no idea. They're like, everyone's always like, oh, how much is that? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm like, looks like a bunch. Yeah. I mean, it's this heavy, this wide. I don't know. Like 10 inches of weight on each side. I don't know. Yeah. Like, and then I add it up after I'm done. I'm like, cool, that was 300 pounds. Yeah. They're like, wow, that's stupid. Yeah. Well, I think you're just power cleaning that? I'm like, yeah, I guess. Yeah. I think that goes to, I mean, you said you don't really follow a program, right? Like, for me, I look through, like, and again, we just have different kind of training styles. Yeah. But like, for me, I look through my program for the week, and I'm like calculating every pound out and like all this stuff, and it's just like visualizing all the stuff I have to do for the week. Whereas you just go in, I mean, stuff on. And there's an important thing to be said about that too, and this is extremely important. Like, to do that, to like not program, you have to have some kind of basis of knowledge. Like, exactly. I don't program because I know what I'm doing. Yeah. I don't like. I'm not saying that you don't know what you're doing if you don't program, but like, I like to train without a program. So and I know that about me. Yeah. I know that if I have a program like my autonomy goes down, and I want my autonomy to be high when I'm in the gym. I want to have freedom, so that's my first goal, is to meet my requirement of my autonomous decisions in the gym.
Yeah.
So that's like what I'm focused on. 2, like I have a very strong like knowledge base of what I could do and what I would be affecting and how I feel. So like that's super important. And then 3, like you have to know what kind of person you are. Like if you're the kind of person that needs a plan or needs like hard numbers to see it, then you need programs. Yeah. And that's 100% awesome. Yeah. Like, but you have to know those. You have to know if you're the person that needs a program, or you have to know that you're the kind of person that like doesn't need programs. You know, like you just need to figure that out. And sometimes starting with a program is not the worst way to go. Like it's sometimes a good way to start is starting with a program. That way you can at least learn some stuff if you haven't really experienced it yet. Yeah. Like.
No, I agree.
And like I've tried programming stuff before. It might last a week. Yeah. And then I'm like, why would I do any of these movements? They don't. Yeah. I'm like they don't really like make any sense to like my methodology, like what I'm trying to do. Yeah. I mean, because it's not individualized. If it was individualized, I'm like, oh, cool. Then it would be things I want to do.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's also probably a problem with most programming, is that if it wasn't written for you, you're probably not gonna like it. It's just like diets. Yeah. It's not sustainable.
That's the biggest thing too. Is like you'll see Instagram dudes that post their bicep curls on their Instagram.
I'm like, cool.
I'm not talking crap about that. Like, you do you, but we do talk crap about you. But they're promoting just like these cookie cutter either nutrition plans and they send the same program out to everybody.
And they didn't use them most likely.
No.
They're like, I made this after I had 49-inch arms. Like,
yeah. Like, it's like if you want a 6-pack, try these 3 exercises or whatever. That's not how. There's nothing based in science there, and you're not going to see individual adaptations that, and especially if some people have different goals, right? So that's where, and I think for me too, just experiencing with programming is like it is very individual in the fact that you have to figure out what is going to keep people adhering to said program. Yeah. Right?
I mean, target audiences is another important thing with that too. Like, most of the people on Instagram that are doing stuff, they know they're not going to get us to follow their program. They're going to get, because we're not general population. Yeah. We are like the 10% who work out, and then the more you work out, the more, like, I'm probably in the 1% of people that have done things in the gym. So like, he's not marketing to me or you.
Absolutely not.
Or Wallen, maybe Wallen. It's like he, but he's marketing to people, like they're marketing, they're using data statistics to basically make money, and they're like, I know people will see this because most people don't know anything about the gym. They see a program, if they have no training, they're gonna do that program and be like, wow, my arms grew 3 inches, I'm huge. And then their friends ask them questions, and then it just becomes this vicious cycle of nonsense. Because it's all due to they don't really have any background or any prior training adaptations, so they're getting some. They see those initial gains, and then they tell their friends, and their friends do it, and then it's just this vast thing that is now the hated, fitness industry. That kind of stuff. Yeah,
which is like what I think that's one of the goals of Justin, is kind of trying to break that stigma in a sense, and bring science and stuff, but still make things
bring
fun,
hard
right?
work, bring consistency. Don't bring, oh hey, Monday through Friday I'm gonna work hard, but on the weekends I'm gonna drink like a fish. Yeah, like
that's no sense.
Not the mentality.
Yeah.
You have to make sacrifices. Like, I mean, not to say that like if you want to be in shape, you have to make sacrifices everywhere. Like, I went to the extreme with that and was like very jaded for a long time, and like if you didn't sacrifice, I didn't like you, like that thing. Because whenever I was into like my bodybuilding like phases and like my powerlifting stuff, I was I would just like lift angry, and I didn't like that. Like after time, I was like, this is like it's making me sad that like I am so angry with something that like that I love, and so now I've completely like 180. Like I still get I still get frustrated sometimes when I go to the gym and I see all the different like archetype phases of people in the gym, and I'm like, ah. But I try not to let I try not to let it bother me anymore, because like I'm like the Mr. Miyagi in the gym now. I'm like the old guy that's there like with a cane, but then I'm jumping 40 feet in the air. But like,
there's something to be said about that, right?
Yeah, it's like you have to go through those phases to know, like, to get past, like, to be where you want to be in the future. You know, like I was. What were you gonna say?
Sorry, it's just like it sounds cheesy, but sacrificing little things eventually, it's a snowball effect, right?
Oh, totally, dude.
Like,
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and it's eventually going to add up, and you know, like Justin and I our dream is to compete in the American Open.
Yeah,
right.
Awesome.
Like that's what we want to do. We both want, like, that's.
And you guys love competing too, and that's something that helps you
yeah.
thrive.
And then, here's the thing too. For me, it's like I've never had that competitive. I was like you for the longest time. I never had any competitive drive. I was always just mediocre at sports. There's nothing to write home about, right? Like I was just and so this is the first. I tell Justin this all the time. It's like this is the first time that I've had that competitive drive,
that hunger
like
for
that hunger.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you have to find that motivation, and that's
exactly.
It's an extrinsic motivation that you need to get you there, and everyone needs some kind of extrinsic motivation to get them there.
Yeah.
Combined with our intrinsic motivations that that help us internally.
Yeah.
Basically.
Exactly. And I don't know. It's just as I'm getting older, it's just I'm realizing that in college, I guess the typical college experience, I should say, it's like for me, I had I was still managing to do my fitness. I was working 2 jobs, going to school full time. But I also was going out and doing crazy stuff.
And you still need those experiences too. Like
for sure.
I guess needs a strong word, but I mean, you still want to have a good time. So cool. I mean, I had those phases. I got lucky and did them before I ever turned 21. Yeah. I did them when I was like 17, 18, and I was like, cool. I've had my fair share of alcohol. I'm done. I had a little bit when I was in the Navy and stuff like that, but it was always it'd be very, very, very brief. And then it was hardcore back on the training. And everyone knew me as that. They're like, that's Tyler. He's probably not going to go out and he can pick up a car. Yeah. Maybe. Exactly. But probably not. Cause And they asked me, I'm like, I couldn't do that.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Yeah. No, it's just, I mean, for me, my lifestyle's changed too over even just the last couple of years. It's especially now that I have training and I think especially transitioning out of that college experience for me at least, it's I was surrounded by so many people. I lived in a 7-guy household, all this stuff, and I lived with a bunch of my friends. And you remember that house, and it was awesome at the time. But then my year 2 experience at that house, I was just that was when I was when I was working both my jobs and I was leaving really early to go to the gym and home really late from work, driving down the M course and back. It's just I was just in a different phase than a lot of people in that house, and that they're still all my really good friends. But
totally. I mean, everyone progresses at different rates. There's nothing wrong with that, but
not at all. But I could just see my focus shifting. Oh yeah. It's I don't want to go out tonight because I want to be functional and go to the gym tomorrow, and I want
Sometimes it's the worst decision. I mean, it's you're happy you're making the decision, but you're like, ugh. Yeah. Why am I so responsible?
Yeah, exactly.
Literally my life story. Yeah. It's that's why I'm successful in the gym is because I've always made that hard decision. Yeah. And I'm like, I suck.
I made a new rule for myself now. It's just Haley and I get crap for it all the time, but we didn't want to go out. We literally just came home and slept because work kicked my ass all week, and on Friday all her roommates were going out or whatever, and I was just we were just both were we want to sleep. That's so if I am going to go out and get a drink or two or go get something, I just do it on Saturdays because I rest on Sunday. But it's just and again it goes back to as you're transitioning out of that college phase, the quantity of friends starts to decrease, right?
Quality goes up.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm loving that aspect. I definitely don't have as many friends as I did in college, but the people that I do choose to surround myself with, you and Justin and everybody's they're mutually beneficial relationships.
Right? I totally agree with you.
And I am at the point in my life where I want to start taking things seriously, move on with my career, go to school, all that stuff. So it's just having little things that drag you back down towards where you were.
About
quantity, quality.
Yeah, quantity and quality of friends. Yeah, dude. It makes sense to fitness industry. I think keeps people grounded. It's a good root system to basically come back to.
Yeah.
It's a good foundation to have, and like once you have it in your life, if you have done it for like the longer you do it, basically like the more it's a good fallback.
Yeah.
Like in your.
I agree.
Like if you like get off track with like what you're doing in life, it's always easy to snore and lay down in bed.
Good boy.
Yeah, it's always easy to get back on track if you know, especially if you have like programs and stuff like that. That's probably like where like my unorthodox methodology doesn't work.
Yes.
It's if you don't know what to do, sometimes it can lead you astray. And I've definitely gone through phases where when I was done powerlifting, I went through because I got injured towards the end of like 2018 after I had done like almost an 800-pound deadlift, and I was like. I was super strong in like all my lifts and stuff like that, but I was extremely unfunctional. Like I could do I went and played football with some buddies, and literally I took off sprinting, and then I like cut super hard. It was the first time I went and like played like any sports in quite a while.
Yeah. And
I cut super hard, and then when I turned, you probably remember this too. Like I like never went to the doctor, so I don't know, but I'm pretty sure like I tore like gracilis or some adductor, maybe adductor like magnus or longus, and like my femur just jammed into my hip socket and smashed my pubic symphysis together, and like it was the worst pain I've ever had in my life for like 6 months. It was terrible.
Wow.
And it kept like pop. It would like as it was healing, if I like took like too much of a step, it would like pop. I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
But I like was just sitting there like thinking about it. I was like, this happened because I'm so like into one like.
It was monostructural.
I was so strong in like just certain movements that like I couldn't do anything outside of that. I was like, this sucks. And I wanted to just be like able to do stuff. Yeah. And like I think I was 29 at the time, and like because my goal was to hit an 800-pound deadlift by the time I was 30. Yeah. And I did a 700 for 5, and I did a 765, and that was like, I was like, done. Yeah. I was like, I'll call it good. Like, I was like, it was a good run. Yeah. And it was like, I was proud of myself for that, but I was like, it's time for a change. And I stopped lifting heavy. Like, I haven't lifted heavy since then. I mean, I still lift heavy. Yeah. But it's not like I don't do any kind of programming like for powerlifting stuff. It's just like now I want to be functional. I want to be an athlete. And like lately, I want to be fast. Yeah. Like, so my force production is still pretty damn high because I trained eccentrically for a long time. Right. But my speed is also insanely high too. Like I jump 13 feet from a seated position. Like that's nice. And that's my goal now. Is basically it's a nonsense goal. Yeah. And that's like I need nonsense goals now to do things. And that goal is basically at our gym we've got a 15-foot width. Yeah. What do you call it? Turf. Turf. Yeah. And my goal is to jump over that entire turf. Yeah. Like. Width-wise. Yeah. No reason behind that goal other than the fact that I know it's extremely difficult. Yeah. I'll probably never get it. Yeah. But like. Well,
there's something that you said though about doing things that are hard. Right.
And I know that like to achieve that goal, I don't just need to jump. Yeah. I have to do a lot of other things to basically make myself like powerful enough to do that. And it entails just full body strength and health. So, and that's like even if it doesn't. That's what I've told myself, right? And it's a goal for me that kind of has kept me like the past year, and maybe like a year and a half since I've been doing that. Like I have not only like lost weight, but I've like lost unnecessary amount of like fat and stuff, and I've become way more functional. Like I used to build and not even power clean like 135, but like one-time workout because my elbows would hurt terribly from all my powerlifting and bodybuilding days. Yeah. Now I can take almost 300 pounds and just sit there on repeat and just go to town. And then I have no pain with it. Like I can jump on repeat, like through an entire workout and be fine. Like I'll be super sore like the next day. Like my feet will be achy and everything because I'm taking 200 pounds and slamming on the ground as I jump. Like, but that kind of stuff is like I'm not injured. Like when I wake up, I'm fine. Like I'm not getting injured and I can jump. I can jump sideways. Like I'm not only moving sagittal, like plane like motion. I can move in 360 degrees. Yeah.
And there's something to be said about that though.
Yeah, and I like that. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It feels good. Yeah.
Doing what feels good, man. Something that keeps you going. You know?
within that pursuit too, I realized, and I mean, I've known this for a long time, and I messaged you about it, but like I realized, and I mentioned that like I've been above 200 pounds for a decade.
Yeah.
And I realized that, and I've talked to my girlfriend about this before, and I'm scared to fall below 200 pounds because my identity was being big, strong Tyler, and everyone's just like, oh. But I thought, you know, me being that 200 pound person or above was who I was. I was like, nobody will like me if I'm not there.
That's your identifier.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Is what I identified as was being, you know, a big guy, and I thought if I wasn't that, I wasn't a big guy anymore.
Yeah.
Like, then I would be like, who am I?
Yeah.
And so it was a very real fear, and that, you know, that's body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
And
was that always just kind of stuck in the back?
Oh, always. And it was always like that number was always there. So I was like terrified if I weighed myself, and I was like 201.
Yeah. How often were you weighing yourself?
No, not very often. Like maybe like once every 6 months.
Yeah.
Like not very often, but like if I did it like randomly and I didn't weigh that, I'd be like, oh crap. But like I also don't weigh myself often because I know how much I weigh. Like
it goes back to the in tune with your body thing.
Totally. Yeah. Like I can, when I weigh a pound less, I can tell.
Yeah.
But like the past couple months, I've been doing like mixing in a lot of like functional fitness with like really high intensity stuff. I like added in cardio. I've been like rowing like 1Ks, 2Ks, 3Ks, like biking a lot, but then mixing in with like lots of heavy lifting, a lot of like strongman stuff. And so I know that like I've definitely like dropped weight, but I still feel and look like I'm like in that 200 pound range.
Yeah, 100%.
And I wouldn't weigh myself. It was like last week I think, and it was like 188 or something.
Yeah, that's nuts.
I weighed myself this morning and I weighed 191. So some of that was like probably water too. But when I weighed myself that and I was like under 200 pounds, it was the first time in that entire decade that I was like, oh cool. Yeah. I was like, it wasn't. And I was like,
it wasn't like a big deal.
No, but it was a big deal. Like I was like wanting to cry just because I was like, I'm okay. Like I was completely like happy. I was like, this is cool. Yeah. It's like I was like, I'm strong. Cool. Yeah. And I've also been doing a lot of stuff with like exercise physiology and like just studying it a lot with some of like the graduate classes I've had, and we talk more about like heart health. So I've been focused on, you know, like keeping my heart strong and like promoting like capillary density and just different dynamic to my training that I like before. I didn't do cardio for all that time because I didn't want to be under 200 pounds.
Small.
Yeah. Like. It made no sense to me, even though cardio has shown to increase, like you can gain weight with it, but you can also like increase all of your lifts, like just with that added. Because you're gonna have more stroke volume, like more cardiac output. Exactly. You need it. Like
I think this would be a good time to FaceTime Justin. Oh yeah. I know he has some stuff to talk about with this as well. We'll get him in here. Hopefully he'll answer.
You can prop him up on a pillow.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. 1 second, everybody. Here he is. Hey, there he is. Hey. It's the sick man himself.
You can prop him up on Wally.
Yeah, good. Hey. Yeah, here he is.
Oh, Wally, you make a great kickstand.
We were talking about body image, I guess, and just dealing with weight fluctuations and stuff like that, and Tyler was kind of explaining his experience with, you know, never wanting to get under that 200 pound mark. And
just like me too.
Yeah, and so I mean, you had a post about it the other day a little bit too, and so I just want to kind of get your take on it and what your thoughts are.
Just in general about body image and its relation to exercise.
Yeah.
And especially in this fitness world.
Yeah.
That we're in.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I had an interesting history with body weight coming from a wrestling background. And I would always try to gain as much weight as possible during my off season, put as much muscle mass as possible on. And then prior to wrestling competition, I would try to lose as much weight as possible. And granted, I was in high school at the time, so I didn't know as much as I do now. And I was really disciplined about it, but it wasn't necessarily good for my overall nutrition and health, physically and mentally. levels because I just starved myself for such a long period of time while going through puberty. But that's like my very specific history in wrestling, and I'd say that it's not like that for most people. Most people almost do like the opposite, where they're either into the bodybuilding world and they feel like they have so heavy or they have to put on so much weight to sustain a certain, I don't know, image for the public eye. I don't know. I think it's something that needs to be talked about more, especially with the YouTube influencers out there, and in the, what is it now? Everyone's using TikTok, and I don't know. I think that there's better conversations to be had with people that have experienced it rather than what's happening on the, I guess, I don't know if the right word to say it, influencing world, I guess.
Yeah, I agree that, and that's the thing too, is like things like that tend to kind of be a back burner issue for a lot of people.
And
right?
It's also probably something that happens in the entire fitness industry. Like most of us probably have body dysmorphia or some kind of like body image issue because that's our field, especially like at our school, our specific experiences is we're all kinesiology majors.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, I got technical difficulties, y'all. Technical difficulties.
Y'all.
But yeah, we're talking about. I remember specifically my first. Because I didn't really have. Coming into Western, I didn't really have any friends outside my high school friend group. I remember, like right when I got into the kinesiology program here at Western, I remember my Kin 306 class. And this is right when I started to take lifting seriously, where I was like following a program and stuff. And I remember my first Kin 306 class when I walked in, it was just big dude. Like, and he had the gallon jug, he had the Gymshark on, you name it, man.
Classic.
Huh?
Yeah. Do you know who it was?
Oh, I know who it was.
Oh, you're not gonna name names.
I mean, he's probably never gonna see this. John. What?
Don't name names.
Okay. Anyways, I was just like, damn, is this what everybody in the kin major is gonna look like? You know, like that's straight. I was like, man, I gotta start eating more protein, taking my creatine. I'm doing everything wrong.
That's the issue, though.
But that's exactly.
Their goals are not your goals. Their goals are not Justin's goals. They're not my goals.
Exactly.
But it feels like it should be your goal because people idolize them and they get attention. So people are like, well, maybe I need to be big. And that's where I was at with the whole thing talking about, not wanting to be 200 pounds.
Yeah.
I did not want to be because for well over a decade, people gravitated to me because I was a big dude, and I was like, oh, this is nice. I went from being super shy and then like in high school and stuff, and not having many friends, to being just walking into a room, people are like, I like that guy, he's big. Yeah. I'm like, this is weird, but I like that people like me.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to lose that,
Yeah.
And that's it sucked that was a feeling, and I didn't want that feeling to it's also it's a pressure too.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds almost conceited to say, but it's a real feeling.
Absolutely. It shouldn't be disregarded. Yeah.
Totally. But it wasn't about that. It was just I like that people, like me for at least something that I'm doing, and they think I'm doing it right. But I'm glad that I'm kind of over that. And then literally the same day that I, weighed myself and I was in the high 180s and now 190s, people are still oh dude, you're huge. And I'm like, oh wow, so it doesn't really, nothing changed.
Yeah.
But I thought that it would just never exist again, and I would just not know who I am. I'd be like, well, time to stop lifting. So.
Yeah.
For you, Tyler, what made you choose that number of 200 pounds?
It's what made me feel different. When I initially got there, is when, I was telling Pat earlier that I've been over 200 pounds for about a decade now. And it was basically whenever I reached that threshold is when people were like, oh, that's Tyler, he's a big guy. And he's super strong. And that's kind of what I became, my identity became, that person. So I developed a fear of ever losing that. and even if it was like 199.5, like I would be like upset. And I remember having a conversation with my girlfriend, like it was either last year or the year before, but like I think I like dipped down to like 199 or like 198 for like a week or two, and I was like just kind of upset, and she didn't know why, and I told her about that, and then like I immediately like went back up. It's probably just water weight, you know.
Yeah.
But this is like I've actually like fully dropped into there now, and I'm like, I mean, and I'm okay with it now.
Yeah.
And now I've like I feel extremely healthy now. Like I really wish I could test my VO2 max now compared to testing it last year. Because last year I was kind of starting this new like change of like how I was training and stuff, but now it's like I have some full adaptations, and I can row like 1,000 meters in like 4 minutes and just keep doing it like on repeat.
Yeah.
And before, like if you put me on a rower for 2 minutes, I'd be dying. Like,
and you'd be halfway across the rec track.
Oh yeah. Now I'm efficient too. I know not to waste all my power. Like,
yeah. I remember seeing you do that for the podcast members. At the gym that we used to work at Western's Recreation Center. Justin's actually working there again now too. It's pretty exciting. But there's a track upstairs, and there's several different rowing machines and an assault bike on the track. And the first time I saw Tyler on one of those, he got on there and started rowing. He'd already gone backwards like 10 feet into the track. Everybody's trying to run around him.
Or up in the air.
Just going crazy. All right, technical difficulty number 5. Bam, boom.
So I got a little gremlin right here next to me. It's okay, but...
Of course, now he's awake. All right. So.
Bicep curls, huh?
4x10. So we're talking about body, the 200-pound number. So you're saying where I kind of want to go with this was once you reach that 200-pound mark, people started noticing you, right? Started paying attention to you, and then at that point, I guess I want to dive into a hot button issue. I'm sure you might have got this question a couple times about steroids and stuff.
Oh, dude, 100%.
How often have you gotten that comment?
A lot. I mean, so I just recently found this out, but I won't name any names or anything. But like, just recently, like going to our gym, like, this young guy was like, hey, dude, how long you been using steroids? I was like, what? I was like, I've never used steroids. Yeah. And he was like, no way, dude. But he's like super young, doesn't really like know like what's obtainable, like through hard work. Yeah. But and there's also a lot of people at our gym that do use steroids. There's a crap ton of people who do. Yeah. And I didn't really like know that for certain. I just kind of like heard it, but like and I was just it like made me. But then it like gave me this chance to not like talk crap about people, but to instead like educate this kid who they didn't like know anything about like this ecosystem. I was like, cool, now's my chance to kind of like give this guy some like good information. I just scienced his head off, dude, about everything. And he was like, wow, dude. He's like, I've learned more in like 10 minutes than I've learned like my entire time I've been like lifting weights for the past 2 years. I was like, sweet, dude. Like, but I was like, you don't need steroids, man. He's like, when do you think you ever use them? I'm like, I'm in my 30s now. Right, yeah. I've achieved literally anything I've wanted to achieve, like with weightlifting. And I've done it all naturally, and I was like, no. I was like, why? Why would I? Like, it was like, do you get more bigger arms? Like, no. Like, it's just...
More bicep curls?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, that whole, I personally have no issue with somebody, you have your own.
I don't have a problem if someone wants to do it, but they need to know what they're doing.
Yes, exactly. They need to know what they're doing, and they need to not. I think that's why, especially men, have a false standard right now. Yeah. It's because you see all these dudes on Instagram claiming they're natural, or they just admit to it.
And,
right?
and who's gonna, like challenge them really and be like, oh yeah, show me your drug test. Like, it's the on the internet, so why would anyone even challenge them? Like,
exactly. But it just goes to show, like, if you're going to take that step and post on social media, your 6-pack and you're remaining that lean consistently 12 months out of the year, odds are it's you know.
Yeah, I'm a weird case. Like but it depends on like your body style too. That
Exactly.
Kind of stuff. Like
absolutely.
I'm probably like an ecto-endomorphic person, maybe like a little bit of like mesomorphic, but like I can stay lean and I can gain, like plus or minus like a little bit of like muscle mass and stuff, but a little bit of fat. But it's also extremely hard for me because I'm a hard gainer, so it's really hard for me to gain weight, like muscle specifically, like. But it's just consistency. If you're consistent, it will come. Field of dreams, baby.
Field of dreams.
If you build it, it will come.
Justin, what are your thoughts on steroids?
I mean, I have the same personal philosophy that Tyler and I think you too, Pat, share. And especially with just in sport too, for me, it would just seem unfair. And I realized that when we compete for USA weightlifting, and here, at least in the States, like USADA is pretty good about, as far as I know, about doing testing. And I just feel morally and unethically wrong about trying to be on any sort of gear while competing. And I think that maybe in other sports that's not necessarily the same, especially in untested sports.
Stigma's different.
And can't say that, like, if I was a power lifter of an elite caliber and competing at Worlds, that I would have less or more temptation because I'm not in that sport. For strongman, strongwoman, a lot of it is untested as well. So to be the best at your sport, there also requires there's a certain it's a different type of dedication. So it just depends on what type of sport you're playing too.
Exactly.
I mean, it depends on the type of drugs. It doesn't even have to be anabolic steroids, or it could be a performance-enhancing drug like Adderall for the purpose of baseball.
Blood doping.
Stuff like that.
Doping, especially for endurance athletes. So
poppy seeds.
This could be a whole topic in itself. Poppy seeds.
Creatine is as far as I go with, performance-enhancing drugs.
I think creatine and caffeine, man, those are the two most popular studied, I guess, performance-enhancing drugs that we are legally taking.
Sleep.
And even caffeine, you're only allowed to take a certain amount per kilogram, technically. I guess you can get popped for that. I never knew that was a thing until I read into it. But I completely agree. I think that if you do take steroids, that's on you. That's personally your decision. I think that it shouldn't be as stigmatized as necessarily a terrible, wrong thing that you're taking steroids.
And that makes it even worse too when they do. It makes it even worse when they do it. It makes it like this whole like dark side of lifting. Like, are you with the force, or are you like?
I agree, and that's up to your personal responsibility to do so. But I also think that it can paint exactly what y'all are saying with a terrible depiction of what you can achieve compared to somebody on Instagram or on YouTube, because they may or may not be truthful about what they are doing. And that's
it also forms a lot of distrust, right? Like you look up to these people, and then for me at least, like I now that I have more education underneath my belt, I can kind of discern who I believe to be, right? But back in the day, when I started to realize how many people were actually doing it and how little people were talking about it, it's like I didn't trust anything I was seeing or listening to, because it's just like, did they achieve this naturally or not? I don't know. And so it's just like, what to believe.
I mean, for me, like, the fact that I know I've achieved everything, like, without doing, like, anabolic steroids, like, that's a pride thing for me, too. Like, so I would never do it now, because, like, I've done a lot of stuff that's extremely hard that I sacrificed my entire, like, past almost 15 years for to achieve, just my own personal goals, but doing them naturally. But, like, when I hear that like, you know, people that I know like are like taking steroids, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to approach it, and sometimes there is definitely some feelings of like, oh well, you know, I did it natural, so screw you, like.
Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you know, it's them. That's their choice. I want to be the better person and not judge, but it's sometimes hard to not, especially once you put in and you've got blood, sweat, and tears in this. You know,
Yeah,
like
for sure. You got some skin in it.
Not that taking steroids doesn't require that as well, because it still requires an immense amount of work to achieve elite levels of any sport while doing steroids. So it's not to take away from people that are amazing athletes that have done them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to do that at all. It's just more of like it's like Justin was saying with, it's a moral standard at that point. Like, and then it's also, you're just perpetuating if you're not talking about it, you're perpetuating a cycle of, you know, what's obtainable, because people don't know. And like you said, you didn't know.
Yeah.
Like,
I had no idea.
If you do, just wear a shirt that says, "Hey, I do steroids."
Yeah.
Like,
get a chest.
That's all I'm asking. that way, young lifters don't tarnish, like, you know, their image or their goals with like what's obtainable. You know?
Yeah.
I would like to add that I think that what we see here in the U.S., and I'm talking like from a weightlifting standard, but this is completely different than what you would see in other Eastern countries.
Oh yeah,
100%. Yeah.
Like if you take Ilya Ilin, who was like he was one of the, if not the best weightlifter ever, and just such a great performer. But he was using steroids since he was on just steroids. He was just on a bunch of different drugs from like age 14 to 15 on. But that's what his country told him to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was all that that was his national pride, to just be the best weightlifter he could.
Yeah.
From Kazakhstan. So like it's so different from, so now we live in a world where you can just go on YouTube and just see anybody do anything. So we have to look at this from our lens as well here, because I'd like to think that the vast majority of weightlifters in the U.S. aren't coached by people that are going to force their kids to do anabolics at such a young age. And I highly doubt that happens here.
Right.
At such a large scale in other countries.
Yeah, definitely small scale.
Yeah.
And I mean, it happens. Of course, it happens. We get people that get popped all the time, but it's just different. And I think it just goes to show that we need to have a larger change at the
media level.
Yeah. So everybody just has so much access to information.
I mean, when it comes down to it, it's only gonna get worse for the amount of stuff that we see, like on stuff like Instagram.
Oh, exactly.
It's gonna get worse, and that's where stuff like this is valuable. Is which, you know, information is important. Like getting good information out to people, telling them that, hey, look, if you are just consistent, even if you have a crap diet or you have a crap weightlifting plan, if you're at least consistent, you're gonna get some kind of pretty good gains. Like consistency is going to be that first big step. Then once you're consistent, then you can start tweaking things like your diet, like your programming, to make it more specific. And then if you keep consistency in that, then you'll see some real good adaptations happen. And then look at that, you look like you do steroids now.
Damn.
Like because you're just working hard, and that's really just the.
For sure.
But I mean, the bad part about, specifically, like, men are bad about this. Like, they want a shortcut. They're like, hey, the number one question I've been asked, well, two, is, what do I do for my arms? And then two, like, how do I get a six-pack by June? If you ask me either one of those questions, I want to kick you in the mouth. Like, it's just, I hate those questions, because it's like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean, what can you do to get a six-pack by June? Like, it's just, be healthy, dude. Like, just, I don't know, go lift some weights. Like, go cut the grass a bunch. Go do some yard work. Like, I don't know, like, be active. Like, being active is how you do most of those things. Like, I don't even work my arms. But I can pick up a bunch of stuff that's really heavy, so my arms grew. The end.
Boom. One question that I specifically have for you, Tyler, was so looking back, you're in the master's program now, and you started what you said 2007.
Around there, yeah.
Yeah. So looking back now, what would be three tips you tell a younger Tyler? Because you're talking about injury prevention, you're talking about all that stuff. So what would be 3 tips that you would give to 2007 Tyler, just kind of getting into the swing of things and reading your books in the coffee shop?
Not to be so angry.
Okay.
Because I used I was a super stressful, anxious kid and a teenager because I wasn't super popular, and my sister was extremely popular, and I just kind of envied that. And I think that just kind of made me mad at the world. And then I used a lot of that anger to basically fuel my fire in the gym, which was good for a while. But it made me super jaded against certain things and topics like bicep curls, and that's more of like a joke thingy, but it's also kind of serious because it's. But I just wish I wasn't so angry about that kind of stuff. And I'm glad I've kind of I've definitely changed a lot the past 4 or 5 years in realizing that, but I wish I would have started that sooner.
Yeah.
But that's definitely one of them is is that, and then for a second one, I don't know, that one's tough because I wouldn't want to say don't join the military because I love my military experience, even though it came with a lot of twists and turns in my life, but I wouldn't be sitting here right now if I didn't. So I don't want to say not join the military, but I wish I would have been able to start educating myself sooner, or start doing school whenever I was in the military, maybe, with the stuff that I'm interested in now. Because I anecdotally knew that I had good information from the get go, and that I was on the right path because I didn't just read magazines and go, oh, that looks cool, I'll do that workout. I would vet it by looking up stuff online, but I didn't know how to research. So I guess number 2 would be knowing how to research, and that's not something that 99% of Americans, humans, know how to do properly. Is how to actually do real research on something, and it's not easy. It's a valuable skill. Yeah. Not just in weightlifting, but through anywhere. I mean, and if you look in the past, year with stuff like that, if people knew how to research, then maybe the political field wouldn't be so crazy this past year or so. If people just knew how to do actual research. And with stuff with COVID, most information comes from the lack of understanding research or interpreting it, and then how to actually do research. So that would be number 2. And then number 3, that one's tough. I think do cardio. Because it was the one thing that I was it scared me the most was to do cardio, because it would have threatened my identity of being what I thought was big Tyler, like the big guy. If I just had let myself, maybe it wouldn't have worked, because I'd have a different mindset now than I did then. Yeah. But it's okay to not be the biggest guy. Yeah. And I for the longest time I always wanted to be, even though I didn't really work to be the biggest person. I just wanted to be. Yeah. But I think cardio stemmed it made me scared to do cardio. But it's valuable. I just never did it. Yeah. And you need it. It's good for your heart. It's good for life health. You can do activities in all multitudes of your life if have good cardiorespiratory fitness. And that's something I just started 14 years in, Yeah. That's dumb. It should have been a very real part of my routine for a long time. Yeah. So
what from an exercise physiology standpoint, right? If people are trying to still see their strength adaptations, or still say they're a powerlifter, what type of cardio would you, what type of cardio would you
I mean,
for
I don't recommend steady state cardio to anyone unless they're doing unless they're like just getting into the gym or something like that. Because steady state cardio is hard, and I think it's a good thing to introduce you to fitness because it's tough and it makes you challenge your mental stability. And that's the only thing I like about steady state cardio is the mental challenge. You don't really gain much from it, like as far as like physiology goes for like performance. I mean, you'll lose a little bit of weight and then it's just going to kind of stagnate from there on out. Unless you're going to be like a marathon runner, that's a totally different story. But just for like general fitness, I would say, and if you're like a powerlifter or like weightlifter, like do high intensity interval stuff. Like go row for like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and then you know, go pick up a heavy kettlebell, put it on one shoulder, walk down and back a track for like 2 minutes, and then drop it, hop back on the rower, like take like 30-second breaks or a minute break, you know. That kind of, I mean, like it doesn't have to be super structured, but you just know that your heart rate's high, can't really keep a conversation with anybody, and you're gonna be super sweaty. So hey, there you go. That's cardio.
I think Cal Strength had a good post about it the other day. It's like, you don't typically see like us doing too much cardio, but you know, they showed Wes Kitts doing intervals on the assault bike. It was a post like 2 months, and you're like, this is what we do for active recovery. He's doing like Tabata on the assault bike, something like that. You know, so I think it's definitely something that's in the powerlifting and weightlifting world. It's not spoken about too much.
It's definitely, I feel like it's almost shunned too.
Yeah.
Because it almost goes back to what Tyler was saying about that complex you have with, if I do cardio, I'm going to lose all my gains. It's opposite of that though. If you know how to do it correctly, and it's really not that hard to do if you're not like in competition state. Like unless you're like within 2 weeks of competition, you can throw in aerobic activity in some sort of fashion that's going to actually help build your base for that strength training. It's going to help you recover within those sets. It's going to help you recover within those days of training. So I think that's one of the best tips you can give anybody that's going to get into the gym, because it will help you recover.
Yeah. I mean, and so another important thing with cardio is, when do you do it? That's like, so if you don't want to lose your muscle mass and you're going to be like a powerlifter, a bodybuilder, or a weightlifter, like cardio right after your training session, that's not what you want to do. Like cardio right afterwards is going to, signal mTOR, and that's going to basically it's going to say, hey, it turns out this pathway that says, hey, do not build muscle right now. That's a layman's way to basically put it. So like do cardio like before you train, maybe like an hour or two before you train or something like that, or like right before. If you've eaten enough, of course, but if you've eaten for your training session, then you burn most of your carbs and your fat for through cardio, then you're going to be at a deficit and you're going to be kind of burning through some fat during your actual training. So maybe eat a little bit more to account for that beforehand, or you can do it like on one of your off days, like go in and do 30 minutes of cardio. Like yesterday or 2 days ago I went and did I did 30 minutes total of cardio. I did 7 minutes to 15 minutes on stair climber, then I rode a 5K, then I biked a 5K, then rode a 2K, and then rode another 2K afterwards, and that was 30 minutes. But it wasn't like super structured, and then I just kind of like kept my heart rate up for around 25 of those 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
I think too, especially for weightlifters, if you have any powerlifters. Anyway, if you have any, one thing that I've really liked, I follow these guys called Ice Physio, and they'll do some type of cardio integrated into like rehabilitation exercises too. So like
that's cool.
Getting some blood flow. So going like back and forth. Like for somebody who's having knee pain, you could do like 30 seconds on the assault bike, and then do 10 Spanish squats or something like that. Go back and forth, set up as an EMOM or something like that.
But great, like super lightweight, high volume.
Exactly. Just kind of going back and forth as a recovery tool, and B, a little bit of prehab work.
Yeah.
So I like setups like that too.
Yeah. Something I've been looking into a lot lately is, and I actually just bought, it's called a slack block or a slack box. It's that blue little balance like device. It's pretty new, but I saw Kelly Strutt promoting it. It was pretty cheap, so I kind of picked it up. But like the past like two or so months, I've been like looking more into like balance work, and I never did any kind of balance work, and I tried doing some of them, and I was like, wow, I have trash balance. and then just doing a little bit of like crossbody stuff with like some like kettlebells where like I kind of like I would stand on my left foot, hold a kettlebell on my right arm, and I would just do like a king deadlift and just like or a stiff leg deadlift with one leg, and I would touch to the opposite side of the body. Like it's cool because you're going across the body, across both brain hemispheres. So you're like increasing your coordination there. You're also figuring out where your weaknesses are by doing that. So I did that like 2 months ago, and I like almost fell over within like 5 seconds. And then just practicing it just barely, like now I can sit there and do it for like 2 minutes at a time.
That's a tricky thing with balance, right? It's like there's ways to progress it, but that, for me, I work at a physical therapy clinic, and so I have a lot of people come see me after their physical therapy, and the general population and of course the town I work at is either like military families or retired old people. So like there's, I won't say old people, wise people. Anyways, I work a lot of balance training, and it's something that I've never really learned in any of my classes. So like, and with balance training too, you get really creative. Like I've gotten very creative with it, and I've had a ton of fun. But it is something that also is not talked about as much, and it's something valuable that like for me, I write programs for my dad sometimes, and I just have a strictly like mobility and balance day. And he loves it, but it's challenging. Like I have him like on a pillow, like tossing a kettlebell back and forth across his body like this, like coming up, just offsetting his center of mass, and stuff like that. But it's a lot of fun.
We've talked about things that are all basically unpopular because they're not like glamorous things. Like balance, like who like goes in the gym and sees someone balancing and they're like, oh
that's
shit,
sick.
I want to be like that. Like, and that's
my one-legged balance VR.
But like it's just like not. They're all things that like aren't prevalently important to someone because it doesn't give them fame. And that's pretty much the issue with all of this stuff that we're talking about. Like, you don't get fame from not doing steroids or like, from not working hard. Like, so that's why those things are not popular, is just because of that, really. So it's like, how can we increase the fame of things that aren't popular in the gym? And it's really, I guess, and you can kind of see it now. It's where like for a long time, nobody was doing any kind of like soft tissue work. And now it's like way too much. You go to the gym and you walk in and people are just rolling left and right. And I'm like, all right, you gotta stop. It's like before their workout, they're like rolling for an hour before they work out. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, why are you rolling before you work out? They're like, well, I feel good. I'm like, okay, but I'm happy they're doing something. But at the same time, like, it frustrates me because I know what they're. I'm like, you're lowering your force production, and you're increasing your instability, like, but they don't care. Like they've seen it, so they want to do it. Like, but that also wasn't a thing years ago. Like, nobody was doing mobility stuff. But I'm glad that some people are doing this one thing that was once had no fame or was just kind of boring in the gym, and then now people are doing it. So that's great. But
you think Kelly Starrett was a big?
Oh, he was definitely like the one that got that started. I mean, and then now there's like all these like branching it's just like he's like the hierarchy, and then just boom, it went from there. And then some people have done it better. Like there's a lot of information out there now. So, but there should also be information about when to do this stuff. Like, because everyone just grabs a roller and then just like dead fish rolling on it. I'm like, you're basically not doing anything. It's your
intention. You have to have intention.
Totally.
And Tyler, about foam rolling, what would you say then is proper protocol for, I guess, let's take a rugby athlete.
So
when a rugby athlete is going to go train and they're going to do like power cleans, back squats, and a couple accessory movements like headlight rows and dumbbell press. What should they do if they are going into the gym and want to post? What would you say?
What I would do is, first, I wouldn't start your workout by doing any rolling. I wouldn't take a massage gun, which I've seen, and like start massaging your leg before you work out. Not gonna do anything for you. But what I would do is do your workout, and then as you're training, say, oh, you know, like my right side kind of feels a little bit tight here, so maybe like, so as prescribed, so like, or like, as you see that you have issues in your movements, that's where like, at the end of your workout, you can say, okay, cool, so I had an issue with some thoracic movements here. Of course, if you don't know like what that even means, you're not going to say that, but like, so there needs to be some kind of, at least do it after your workout to start with, but, and then as you're training, kind of assess yourself, like maybe like on a Monday or something, like see how your body feels that week, and if you feel tight in your shoulders, like that's a little bit more like innate of a term to use, like you're like, oh, my back feels tight, or my chest feels tight, so then
like
maybe
glutes.
maybe the glutes feel tight, so like that's when I would try